Welcome back, and thanks for tuning in to NK Cheating Story. We truly appreciate every single one of you. Where are you watching from? Drop a comment and let us know. Now, let's dive into today's story. My name is Daniel Hartman. I'm 52 years old, been in sales for over 2 decades, and up until a few months ago, I thought I had life all figured out. A steady career, a nice house in the suburbs, and a wife I believed I could trust. We'd been married for 17 years. I wasn't perfect, but I was loyal, dedicated, and blind. Blind to what was happening right under my nose. They say you should trust your instincts. Mine started screaming the moment I booked an earlier flight home. Something told me not to call ahead. And thank God I listened. That night, I didn't just catch my wife cheating. I walked into the kind of betrayal most men don't recover from. But I didn't break. I didn't lash out. I didn't beg. Instead, I planned something she'd never forget. And neither will you. What happened next was part heartbreak, part theater, and maybe, just maybe, the most liberating moment of my life. So if you've ever been lied to, taken for granted, or made to feel small, sit down. Because my story isn't just about revenge. It's about rediscovery, redemption, and rising from the ashes stronger than ever. We've had our ups and downs, sure, every couple does. But I always thought we had something real, something worth fighting for. Turns out, I was fighting alone. Last month, I flew out to a regional sales conference in Denver. It was supposed to last until Wednesday, but the last day's seminar was canceled. So I wrapped up early on Monday evening and sat in my hotel room, thinking I could relax, catch a late movie, maybe order room service, but something didn't feel right. Call it instinct. Or maybe guilt. I'd been traveling a lot, missing dinners, birthdays, even our anniversary the year before. I missed my wife. I missed home. So I decided to surprise her. I checked for flights, and there it was, an evening flight landing at an airport south of our city. It wasn't my usual airport. This one was further out and less convenient, but it would get me home by midnight. I didn't call Linda. I wanted to see her face when I walked through the door unannounced. The excitement, the joy, that warm, familiar embrace. Yeah, that's what I thought would happen. 3 hours later, I was off the plane, keys in hand, driving a rental car up the quiet, dark streets toward our house. The driveway was empty. Her car wasn't there. Strange, I thought. Maybe she was at the store, out with a friend. But at midnight, I stepped into the house quietly, hoping to catch her mid-yawn on the couch, maybe wrapped in a blanket watching late-night TV. But the house was still. No lights, no sound, just the ticking of the old kitchen clock and the hum of the fridge. My heart started pounding. I walked to the bedroom. Empty. Bathroom. Empty. Guest room. Empty. She was nowhere. I tried to stay calm. Maybe she went to a friend's place. Maybe she fell asleep at her sister's. But something didn't sit right. I called her cell. She answered on the third ring, voice groggy. Daniel? It's past midnight. What's wrong? Nothing, honey, I said, forcing a casual tone. Just checking in. You asleep? Yeah, she said quickly. I was just in bed. I've got to be up early to pick you up from the airport. 6 a.m., right? That was when the hairs on my neck stood up. Oh, right, I replied slowly. Still planning on that. Of course, she said. I can't wait to see you. I miss you. I forced a smile, though she couldn't see it. I miss you too. Then I hung up and just stood there, in my own home, talking to my wife, who was supposedly in bed, in a house I was standing in alone. I dialed the landline. It rang from the kitchen, just once before she sent it to voicemail. The phone's broken, she said. Repair guy's coming tomorrow. Lies. She was lying to me. Calm, practiced, and without hesitation. I felt the blood drain from my face. I walked up to the master bedroom and stared at our bed. Our marriage. Our history. There was no trace of her. No tossed pillows. No left-behind pajamas. Just a neatly made bed and a half-empty bottle of wine on the nightstand. I felt like a fool. But the worst part? I still wanted to believe her. I sat there for an hour, thinking, replaying the call, replaying every other excuse she'd given me over the last 6 months. Late meetings, business trips, girls' nights. I'd been too tired, too distracted, too trusting. But not anymore. The next morning, I made coffee and parked my rental down the street. I had a feeling she'd be back soon. And I was right. At exactly 7:03 a.m., Linda's car pulled into the driveway. She wasn't alone. I watched from the window as a tall man in a dress shirt and slacks stepped out of the driver's side and opened the door for her. She kissed him. Not a peck. Not a friendly hug. A slow, deliberate kiss. I didn't scream. I didn't storm out. I quietly stepped into the foyer, slipped into the coat closet, and pulled the door halfway closed. I was done wondering. It was time for the truth. From the cramped darkness of the closet, I could hear everything. Linda's heels clicked across the hardwood as she entered, laughing softly. The man, her boss, I would soon learn, closed the front door behind them. I leaned forward, barely breathing, heart pounding like a drum in my ears. I need to grab a few things for work, Linda said casually, like she hadn't just kissed another man on her husband's doorstep. Might as well get clothes for tomorrow, too. No sense in coming back again in the morning. The man chuckled. You sure? I could come pick you up again. But if I do, I might need to make love to you before work again. I felt a surge of rage rise in my chest, hot and sharp. My hands clenched around the edge of the door, but I held still. Careful, Mr. Boss, Linda teased. You're going to make me fire you for being late again. He laughed. Your husband's clueless anyway. He's not due home until tomorrow morning, and if he doesn't call tonight, he's not coming back yet. You said so yourself. I doubt he even notices half the time, she replied. Daniel's too wrapped up in work and his sales numbers to care what I'm doing. Her voice was cold, detached. I didn't recognize it. He'd probably apologize to me for the inconvenience if he caught us, she added with a laugh. Offer you a beer and act like nothing happened. I swallowed hard. That's how little she thought of me. A pushover. A joke. His name's Daniel, right? Her boss asked. Yep. Poor thing. I think he still believes I'm the perfect wife. They both laughed, and my grip tightened. Her perfect wife had just joked about sleeping with her boss in our living room. I leaned forward ever so slightly and peeked through the crack. I saw him reach for her waist, pulling her close, pressing his lips to hers. She kissed him back, deep and slow, right in front of the family photos hanging on the wall. The irony nearly made me sick. He was tall, polished, probably in his early 40s. Not unattractive, but arrogant. Every word he said oozed entitlement. His name, I would learn later, was Craig Harmon, transferred from the Houston office. Recently promoted. Recently relocated. Newly emboldened. I watched them move toward the staircase. You've got 10 minutes, Linda whispered. Then I really do have to get to the office. 10 minutes is all I need, he replied smugly. I nearly kicked the door open right then and there. But no, not yet. I needed more than anger. I needed proof. I waited until they went upstairs, then quietly slipped out of the closet, phone in hand, snapping photos of the shoes by the door, his briefcase on the couch, and the wine glasses she'd set out on the kitchen island. She'd clearly been planning for this, expecting him. There were 2 candles already burned halfway down. This wasn't a fling. It was a routine. I stepped back into the closet just as they came downstairs again. Craig was buttoning his shirt, Linda smoothing her blouse. They kissed one more time at the door. I'll call you later, he said. Text me first. You know Daniel always checks the logs. That hit like a knife. She knew me. Knew how I tried to stay connected. She'd used that knowledge to cover her tracks. When the door closed behind him, she stood alone in the foyer for a few seconds, looking pleased. Smug. She didn't know I was standing 10 feet away, hearing every word. After she left, I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I sat on the couch, the same couch they'd just been on, and let the betrayal settle in like dust after a storm. I knew what I had to do. This wasn't just about infidelity. This was about deception, disrespect, mockery. Linda hadn't just broken our vows, she'd broken me. Piece by piece, over months, maybe years, until I was just a ghost in my own marriage. But I wasn't going to stay a ghost. Not anymore. She thought I was weak. Predictable. She had no idea what I was capable of when pushed. And she was about to find out. I didn't sleep that night. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the flickering candle stubs Linda had left behind, the ones meant to set the mood for her little rendezvous. The wine glasses were still on the counter. One had her lipstick on it. The other, fingerprints I didn't recognize. Some men would have lost it right there. Me? I was calm. Too calm. Because now, I had a plan. You see, I'm in sales. I don't build rockets or perform surgery, but I know people. I read them, understand their weaknesses, and when necessary, I close the deal. That night, I wasn't selling a product. I was selling a trap. The first step? Leverage. If Craig Harmon wanted to play games with another man's wife, I needed to know everything about him. And his family. Linda had let it slip that Craig came from the Houston office. That was all I needed. By 8 a.m., I had called the company's receptionist, posing as someone from payroll confirming relocation benefits. All it took was a friendly tone and a fake badge number to get what I needed. Craig's full name, title, transfer details, and that he had a wife and 2 teenage kids still living in Texas. Jackpot. That evening, I called down to Houston. Took me 3 tries, but I found her. Mrs. Harmon? I asked politely. Yes. Who's calling? This is Ron Patterson from Halifax Corporation. We're planning a surprise recognition event for your husband and wanted to invite you. It's a small gathering in Springfield. All expenses paid. Round-trip airfare. We'll fly you in and out, and he'll never see it coming. Oh, that's really sweet, she said, voice tinged with suspicion. And when is this surprise? Tomorrow evening. But please, don't say a word. It's meant to honor his service and dedication. She laughed softly. I won't ruin the surprise. Thank you. That's really kind of you. I thanked her and hung up. One down. Next, I made a few calls to Linda's friends, her sister, even her mother. I told them Linda had received a promotion from her boss, Mr. Harmon, and that I was throwing her a surprise party to celebrate her success. I said I wanted it to be meaningful, personal, intimate, and that I needed them to show up by 7 p.m. sharp. Please, I said, voice brimming with sincerity, don't tell her. It'll mean more if she doesn't expect it. They loved it. Ate it up like cake. Then I called the best local catering company I could find. I ordered trays of hors d'oeuvres, wine, beer, and her favorite, shrimp cocktail. Told them to set up everything on the patio by the pool. Linda had always dreamed of hosting a fancy gathering there. It was poetic. Go around the back if the house seems empty, I instructed the delivery team. Set up quietly. It's a surprise. I even had music arranged, soft jazz, her favorite playlist from our 10th anniversary dinner. I wanted everything to be perfect, and it was. The next day, I picked up Mrs. Harmon, Craig's wife, from the airport. She was elegant, confident, the kind of woman who walks into a room and commands attention without saying a word. Thanks again for this, she said as we drove. I can't believe you all went through so much trouble. Just wait until you see the look on his face, I replied. She smiled. Oh, I couldn't wait either. By 6:30, the veranda was sparkling. Fairy lights, linen tablecloths, champagne chilling on ice. The guests had parked down the block, just as I'd asked. I gave everyone the rundown. When I flicked the lights off on the patio, silence. No movement. No sounds. Just wait. I positioned myself behind the thick curtains in the living room, where I had a full view of the sliding glass doors and the exact spot where the 2 lovebirds would likely enter. 7:58 p.m. Linda's car pulled up. Showtime. I turned off the lights and held my breath. Laughter echoed through the hallway as the front door opened. Linda's voice was unmistakable, light, flirty, drunk on confidence. You sure your wife's not going to find out? She teased. Craig's voice followed. Positive. She's in Houston until the kids finish the school year. Besides, you're the only woman I'm thinking about tonight. Perfect, I thought. Keep talking. They stumbled into the living room, lips locked, hands all over each other. Craig helped her out of her coat, and in a matter of seconds, she was standing in her favorite red dress, one I bought her for our anniversary, pulling him toward my chair. I reached for the switch. Click. The lights blazed on. And just like that, everything stopped. Craig froze. Linda gasped, eyes wide. And I stepped out from behind the curtain, arms crossed, face calm. Welcome home, I said quietly. Then, from behind them, came the sliding of glass and the stunned gasp of 20 guests on the patio, including Mrs. Harmon. Checkmate. The silence that followed was the kind you could feel in your bones. Linda stood motionless in the center of our living room, her red dress barely clinging to her shoulders, lips still parted from the kiss I had just interrupted. Craig, the great Mr. Harmon, was still holding her hand, until he realized exactly who he was looking at. Me. His mouth twitched. A bead of sweat rolled down his temple. His grip loosened, and Linda stepped back like she'd just touched a live wire. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't lunge at anyone. I simply said, Linda, you left the patio lights on. Thought you liked surprises. That's when I reached for the blinds and pulled the cord. The sliding glass doors parted. Gasps. I turned on the deck lights, and there they were, 20 people staring in, jaws dropped. Her mother, her sister, a couple of coworkers, even the neighbors she always gossiped with over coffee. And front and center, in a cream blouse and matching heels, was Mrs. Harmon, Craig's wife. She didn't flinch. She walked in, slowly, deliberately, her large purse clutched like a weapon. Craig took a step back. Big mistake. She swung. The purse hit him square in the chest, knocking him off balance. He stumbled 5 feet back into a chair, which promptly tipped over with a loud thud. Linda gasped, then realized she was still nearly half undressed. She scrambled to fix her dress, but it was no use. The damage was done. I stood to the side, arms folded, watching like a director enjoying the first night of his play. Linda's mother pushed through the stunned crowd, eyes wide with fury. "Get dressed," she snapped. "What the hell is wrong with you? I didn't raise you to be some homewrecker. You look like an extra from an adult film." "Mom," Linda stammered, face pale, mascara already starting to smear. "You shut your mouth and get upstairs now." The room was electric. Tension, shame, disbelief, all simmering into chaos. I turned, walked to the kitchen, opened the fridge, and grabbed a cold beer. I popped it open with one hand, took a sip, and turned back to see Craig trying to stand while Mrs. Harmon pointed a finger an inch from his nose. "You thought I wouldn't find out?" she hissed. "You thought you could lie to me and play house with her? While your kids sit at home asking when daddy's coming back." Craig didn't even try to respond. His face was red, his shirt was half open, and the man looked like he'd aged 10 years in 10 minutes. Linda, now fully dressed but barely holding it together, turned to me. "Daniel, what is this? What are you doing here?" I tilted my head. "This is my house, remember? My name's still on the deed. You just forgot." The crowd behind her murmured, shifting awkwardly. The party had officially turned into a public execution. Linda blinked, as if trying to reset the situation. "You weren't supposed to be home until..." I changed my flight. I cut her off. Turns out, honesty goes a long way with airline staff. Craig tried to gather what little dignity he had left. "I think I should go." I raised my beer. "Don't forget your dignity on the way out." But before he could reach the door, Linda's cousin stepped in. "You're not driving," he growled, gripping Craig's arm. "I'll give you a ride to a motel. That's where trash belongs." Craig didn't argue. He just nodded and let himself be led away like a scolded child. Linda stood frozen, face blank, lipstick smudged, dress wrinkled. She looked at me as if searching for a lifeline. A way to spin this, to twist it into something else. But there was no coming back. "I was planning a surprise party," I said, waving toward the food, the candles, the drinks. "For your promotion. For everything you've accomplished lately." Her lips quivered. "You always wanted a party on the patio," I added. "So I made it happen. I figured it'd be nice if the people who really know you were here to celebrate too." She couldn't look me in the eye. The guests began to quietly filter out, murmuring apologies, giving me knowing glances and Linda pitying ones. Her mother took her by the arm and whispered something stern before leaving. Even she was too embarrassed to stay. Finally, the house was empty again. Just the two of us. Linda collapsed on the couch, head in her hands. I sat across from her, calm, collected. "You did all this to humiliate me," she said quietly. "No," I replied, sipping my beer. "You did this all by yourself. I just made sure everyone saw it." And that was only the beginning. Linda stayed on the couch long after the guests were gone. Still, quiet, broken. Part of me almost felt sorry for her, until I reminded myself what I had witnessed. The lies, the smirks, the way she mocked me behind my back. Sympathy had no place here. This was a war she started. I simply chose to end it on my terms. The silence hung thick in the air. The only sound was the ticking of the kitchen clock, echoing in a house that no longer felt like home. Eventually, Linda lifted her head. "You planned all this, just to hurt me," she said, voice hoarse. I leaned back in my chair, swirling the last of my beer. "No, I planned a party. You brought the entertainment." Her lip trembled. She wasn't used to this version of me, measured, in control, detached. The Daniel she knew would have begged for answers, pleaded for forgiveness, tried to fix something that had been broken long before either of us admitted it. But that Daniel was gone. "I can't believe you called my mother." "My sister," she trailed off, voice cracking. "Oh, and Craig's wife," I added casually. "Lovely woman, by the way. Smart. Fierce." She walked in like a hurricane. You should have seen your face. She stood, unsteady. You ambushed me. No, Linda. I exposed you. She stared at me for a long moment, eyes glossy but defiant. If you'd been around more, if you hadn't been married to your job, maybe this wouldn't have happened. There it was. The excuse. The moment where the cheater tries to rewrite the narrative. I saw it coming like a freight train. You want to blame me? I asked, standing now, the energy shifting between us. You want to pretend that I drove you to climb on top of your boss in our living room? You were never here, she snapped. You don't listen. You don't see me. I saw you last night, Linda. I shot back. Every damn part of you. She flinched, the color draining from her face. I was lonely, she whispered. Craig made me feel wanted. I scoffed. So you traded vows for validation? That's your defense. She didn't respond, just wrapped her arms around herself like she was trying to keep her body from falling apart. I sat back down, this time across from her at the table. I could have forgiven a mistake. One night. A moment of weakness. But you planned this. You laughed about me. You invited him into our home, into my chair. You were proud of it. Her eyes darted away. You thought I was a joke, I continued. That I'd just roll over and ask if he wanted another beer. That I was weak. She didn't deny it. That told me everything. I didn't think it would go this far, she finally said, voice barely above a whisper. No, I said coldly. You didn't think I'd go this far. She sat down, shoulders sagging. What now? I leaned in, calm as ever. Now, I file for divorce. Tears welled in her eyes, but she didn't cry. Not yet. And just so we're clear, I added, you won't be getting the house. You won't be getting sympathy. And you sure as hell won't be getting the benefit of the doubt. You're serious? She whispered. Oh, I've never been more serious in my life. Silence settled again. This time heavy. Final. I don't even know who you are anymore, she said, wiping a tear from her cheek. I stood, walking toward the hallway. That's funny. I was thinking the exact same thing. As I reached the stairs, she called out one last time. Daniel, did you ever really love me? I stopped, hand on the banister, then looked back over my shoulder. I did, I said simply. More than you deserved. Then I walked upstairs, closed the bedroom door, and locked it behind me. The sound of the lock clicking echoed like a gavel. I didn't cry. I didn't look back. That night, I slept alone in our bed. But for the first time in years, I wasn't the lonely one. Linda was. The morning after felt like the air had shifted, clearer, colder, and strangely still. Sunlight poured through the blinds, illuminating a house that once felt like a home, but now stood as nothing more than a stage after the final act. The chaos had passed, the crowd had left, but the aftermath hung heavy. I came downstairs around 7 a.m. The kitchen smelled faintly of wine and cold shrimp from the party that never was. Linda sat at the dining table, the same spot she collapsed into the night before. Her hair was messy, makeup smudged from hours of crying, and she was still wearing that red dress, wrinkled and stained with silence. She looked up when she saw me, eyes swollen but expectant, like she thought we'd talk. That maybe the storm had passed, and we'd pick up the pieces. I poured myself a cup of coffee, ignoring her, and sat at the other end of the table. How'd you sleep? She asked, her voice brittle. Like a man with nothing left to lose. I replied without looking at her. She winced. Daniel, I know what I did was wrong, but She stopped herself. I mean, maybe this doesn't have to end in divorce. Maybe we can go to counseling. Try to fix what's broken. I took a long sip of coffee, then looked her dead in the eye. You can't fix what you intentionally destroyed. Her eyes began to well again. But I love you. I laughed. Short. Cold. You don't love me, Linda. You love the version of me that was too tired to notice. The one who traveled often enough for you to sneak around and play house with your boss. You loved having a safety net, not a husband. Her face crumpled. You made me feel invisible, Daniel. And you made me feel like a fool. She stood up suddenly, her chair scraping across the floor. I said, I'm sorry. What more do you want from me? I wanted honesty, loyalty, respect. But since that's off the table, I'll settle for your signature on the divorce papers. She opened her mouth, then closed it again, trembling. I set my coffee down and pulled out a manila envelope I had prepared the night before. These are the documents. I'll have my attorney contact yours. If you want a contest, go ahead. But I promise you, Linda, I have all the evidence I need. Photos, recordings, witnesses, even Craig's wife, who's more than willing to testify. She sat back down slowly, her fingers brushing the envelope like it burned to the touch. "What did you tell her?" "Enough," I said. "Enough for her to pack his things and throw him out before sunrise." Her head dropped into her hands. "I ruined everything." "No," I said, leaning forward. "You chose to ruin everything." The front door suddenly creaked open. Linda's mother stepped in, her face grim but calm. "I figured you'd be here," she said to Linda. Then, turning to me, "Daniel, I want to apologize for what my daughter's done. She was raised better." I nodded, emotionless. "She's going to stay with me for a while," she continued. "Let things settle." Linda didn't argue. She quietly rose, her hands still shaking, and began collecting a few things in a tote bag. As she walked past me toward the door, she stopped. "Daniel, if there's any part of you that still remembers who we were, I remember," I said. "That's the problem." She looked like she wanted to say more. Maybe beg, maybe scream. But in the end, she just walked out the door with her mother, leaving behind silence and that damned red dress, now slung over the back of a chair like a flag of surrender. I sat there for a long time, staring at it. Eventually, I cleaned the mess from the night before, packed up the leftover food, threw out the wine bottles, folded the tablecloths. I washed the lipstick-stained glasses last, scrubbing until every trace of her was gone. The house was empty again, but for once, it didn't feel lonely. It felt free, and I knew this wasn't the end of the story. It was the beginning of my next chapter, one where I would never again be made small, one where I'd never be anyone's afterthought. Linda had taken my trust, my time, and a piece of my heart, but I still had my pride. And from here on out, I was done playing nice. The following week passed in a blur of paperwork, hushed phone calls, and hollow conversations with attorneys. My life had become a series of dotted lines and signatures. Every scribbled name on a legal form felt like another nail in the coffin of a marriage that had long been dead. I just hadn't accepted the burial until now. Linda moved in with her mother temporarily, though from what I heard, she spent most nights alone in her car or staying at cheap hotels. Her once flawless image, polished, poised, admired by her friends, was now cracking under the weight of reality. I hadn't even needed to ruin her reputation. She did that all by herself. As for Craig Harmon, he didn't last a week. Word spread through the corporate halls like wildfire. Sleeping with a subordinate's wife while relocating for a new executive position didn't sit well with the company board. Mrs. Harmon, God bless her, wasn't just a woman scorned. She was strategic. She presented the evidence I gave her to HR and the ethics committee, complete with emails, hotel receipts, and the photos I'd taken that fateful morning. She didn't yell. She didn't threaten. She simply exposed him. He was escorted out of the building 2 days later. Some people get fired. Others get erased. Craig was the latter. But justice wasn't my end goal. Not really. What I wanted was closure. So I made a phone call. I asked to meet Linda at a cafe. Neutral ground. No lawyers. No witnesses. Just the two of us. She agreed, almost too eagerly. When I arrived, she was already there, nervously stirring a cup of tea that had long gone cold. She looked worn down, thinner, like the weight of what she'd done was finally crushing her. She tried to smile when I sat across from her. "I wasn't sure you'd come," she said. "I almost didn't," I replied, then folded my hands on the table. "But I figured you deserved to hear this in person." She looked up, hopeful, desperate. I didn't waver. "I'm not angry anymore," I began. "That part burned out. I'm not here to fight, or ask why, or dig through the rubble for something salvageable." "Then why are you here?" "To tell you that I forgive you." She blinked, caught off guard. "You what?" "I forgive you," I said again, slowly, clearly. "Not because you deserve it, but because I do." Her eyes began to water. "Daniel, save it," I said gently. "This isn't for you. It's for me. I've been carrying the weight of what you did, of what we became, and I'm done. You were unfaithful. You humiliated me. You broke the vows we made. But I won't let your choices poison the rest of my life." Tears rolled down her cheeks now. She wiped them away, but I didn't reach across the table. I didn't offer comfort. That wasn't my role anymore. "I don't want alimony. I don't want revenge. I don't even want apologies," I continued. "I just want peace. And I'm going to have it, with or without your understanding." She nodded slowly, hands trembling. "I lost you long before Craig ever stepped foot in our house," I added. "And honestly, I lost myself too, trying to be everything, do everything. while ignoring the cracks. I stood, reached into my coat pocket, and slid a small envelope across the table. "What's this?" she asked. "Finalized papers." My lawyer rushed it through. "All it needs is your signature. After that, we're done." Her fingers trembled as she took it. "And what will you do next?" I smiled, genuine, for the first time in what felt like years. "Live," I said. "Really live." Then I walked out of that cafe, the door swinging shut behind me, sunlight hitting my face as if the world had been waiting to welcome me back. I felt lighter, not because I had won, but because I had let go. And for the first time in a long time, I wasn't surviving. I was free. 3 months passed. Quiet, steady, healing months. The divorce was finalized 2 weeks after Linda signed the papers in that cafe. She didn't contest anything. Not the house, not the savings, not the memories. Maybe she was too ashamed, or maybe she realized she had lost the one thing she couldn't get back. My respect. I didn't celebrate. There was no champagne, no dramatic bonfire of wedding photos. Instead, I sat on my back patio, wrapped in a hoodie, sipping strong black coffee under the stars. It was the same patio where I had once dreamed of throwing anniversary parties. Instead, it had hosted the most poetic revenge I could have imagined. Now it was just mine. The silence wasn't empty anymore. It was peaceful. It didn't ache. It breathed. In the weeks following the divorce, people reached out, some to offer support, others to gossip. Linda's reputation had taken a nosedive. Craig moved back to Texas with nothing but a ruined marriage and a blacklisted name. His wife filed for divorce as well, and from what I heard, she wasn't nearly as forgiving as I had been. Couldn't blame her. As for Linda, she tried once more to reach out, sent me a message on a Sunday morning, just a few words, "I miss you." I made a mistake. I didn't respond, because I wasn't her mistake to regret. I was the man she discarded. And now, I was the man who had rebuilt. Funny thing about betrayal. It teaches you everything about yourself you never wanted to learn. How much pain you can tolerate. How much dignity you can claw back after being stripped bare. How strong you really are when everything you built comes crashing down. I started hiking again. Picked up an old guitar I hadn't touched in years. I reconnected with old friends, the kind I lost track of during the marriage because Linda didn't click with them. Turned out, they never liked her much anyway. One night, while grabbing dinner alone at a quiet bar, I met someone. Her name was Sarah. She was kind, quick-witted, and had this spark in her eyes like she'd lived through her own fire and survived. We didn't jump into anything serious. We just talked, laughed, shared stories about scars and stupid choices. It felt good, real, earned. I didn't tell her about Linda, not at first. I didn't want to lead with the pain, but eventually I did. And she didn't flinch. She just nodded and said, "Well, sounds like she lost a damn good man." That stuck with me, because for the longest time, I questioned myself, wondered if I wasn't enough, if I missed the signs, if I could have saved us. But the truth was simpler and far more liberating. I was never the problem. Linda was the one who stepped outside our vows. Craig was the one who preyed on what he thought was a vulnerable marriage. And I was the one who refused to stay broken. I didn't need vengeance. I just needed to remember who I was. One Saturday evening, months after it all, I found myself hosting a small get-together. Just a few friends, some grilled steaks, a cooler of beers, and music playing low from my old speakers. Someone raised a toast and said, "To Daniel, the comeback king." We laughed. I laughed. Because in that moment, surrounded by people who chose to be there, who saw me, not as some heartbroken man, but as a fighter, a survivor, I realized something powerful. She may have broken my marriage, but I rebuilt my life. And it was better, stronger, real. So here's what I know now, and what I'd tell anyone, especially the ones who feel too old, too tired, too broken to start over. You're never too far gone to begin again. You're never too old to find peace. And sometimes, being betrayed is the greatest freedom you'll ever get, because it forces you to burn the house down just to discover you had wings all along. I don't hate Linda. I don't even think about her much anymore. But every so often, when I'm sitting on that same patio, coffee in hand, flames dancing in the fire pit, I smile. Because I didn't just survive her betrayal. I rose from it. And if there's one thing I've learned through all of this, through the betrayal, the heartbreak, the long nights and quiet mornings, it's that pain doesn't mean the end. It means something inside you is being reborn. For those of us who've lived long enough to carry scars, Let me tell you, it's never too late to reclaim your peace. Age doesn't make healing harder, it makes it wiser. Don't ever let anyone convince you that you have to settle for disrespect, loneliness, or betrayal just because the years have piled up. Dignity doesn't retire. Love doesn't expire. And peace is always worth fighting for. Whether you're 40 or 70, you still have the right to choose yourself. Walk away from what breaks you. Rebuild what lifts you. And remember, sometimes the greatest chapters of your life begin after someone else tries to write your ending. So don't let them. Keep writing. Keep rising. And know that even in the later pages of your life, there's still time for joy, still room for redemption, and always a reason to hold your head high.